Welcome to A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm your host, Eric P. Bishop. This is a podcast where interesting people come and tell about the stories they've crafted. As for myself, I'm an author. I've created novels, short stories, novellas, and even poetry. If you'd like to find out more about what I've done, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. Today, I'm excited to have Gavin Stone on the program. Welcome, Gavin.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. So we have an interesting connection, and I didn't even know it until we had not FaceTime, I guess, whatever it was, a video messenger call a couple of weeks back. But we actually have the same book editor,
I know,
which which is
and
pretty
he's
cool.
cool.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
the way the spider web comes together in the writing community, I think, is kind of fascinating. Because, you know, by what we do by nature, it's a very kind of lone wolf. It's just you. It's just you and either a pad and a pen or a typewriter or a keyboard, and you just start telling stories. Then after you've crafted those stories, hopefully at some point, you realize I might need some professional help. And so then you brought in your scope of who's out there and who you can interact with. And then that's where the spider web effect happens,
Yeah.
where you realize that someone recommends a certain either cover designer or editor, and then your network kind of grows. And then if you do this right, you then get to share those wonderful professionals you meet with other writers, and they get
Mhm.
to hone their craft. So that's one of the ways we got to connect.
Yeah. In fact, there's been people telling me I've been needing professional help for some time. So, yeah. I mean, it was. I actually went through about four editors before I got to the one that we're currently using, and I feel
Yeah.
like we should give him a shout out because the man is an absolute walking talent. So,
Yes.
Jonas, if you hear this, thank you very much for being the best editor and just a wonderful human being in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Jonas Saul is and my connection with Jonas was, and I mentioned it on the episode when I filmed with Jonas, was through David Darling. A
Same
while
here.
back, yeah, David and I were interacting, and I'm like, man, I had kind of reached out to some editors and gotten some good feedback and negative feedback, and so I was like, who are you using? And he said, I got a guy. He's reasonable. He's really good at what he does, and he even lives somewhere cool. And I'm like, oh wow, tell me more. And so, thank you to David Darling. So.
Yeah, definitely. And again, another great writer in the community. And the one thing I do like about the writing community, the majority of them are willing to like extend a hand. They'll pay it forward. They've all been where we are. They know what it's
Mhm.
like. And it's just fantastic the amount of help that everybody gives each other.
Yeah.
Wonderful community. Most of
Well, and it's something that's come up in other podcasts. It's not a competition. And you would think it would be a competition. You would
them.
think, okay, if I'm coming out with a book, my book Breach of Trust came out this summer. Well, if Gavin Stone comes out with a book around the same time or anything, then that's a competition of my book. It's like, no, it's not. I mean, I think it's normally extremes. I know there is always middle in anything, but majority of readers out there don't just read one book a year. There are a few
No,
people
that's
that
right.
do. So if that person only reads two books a year and they find your book and my book, well then okay, maybe it's some sort of, but it's not really a competition. That's not our target audience. We're not going for someone that's just going to read one or two books a year because the chance of us being their readers is very low.
Exactly.
We're writing books in the hope that these people that read 50, 60, 70, 100 books a year
Hmm.
grab on and put us in one of their slots as well. So it's a big, and there's so many. You and I have talked offline, obviously, but the audience that's available is pretty amazing considering a lot of people don't read. So there's a way to keep growing your audience because there's so many people out there that don't give reading the time of day, which is sad.
It
Which
really
I
is.
think is really a big part of what caused these little devil machines here have caused that people are more interested in, what's on TikTok, what's on my
Yeah.
Instagram stories, and I'm a guilty party of purveying and looking at that crap more than I should. So, um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I get them sent to me frequently, by people, TikToks and things like that. And I do watch some of them, but I'm not. I mean, my other half, she can flick and flick one after another through her entire lunch break, and it's gone, and she's just TikToked it away. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I am with TikTok the way those kind of people are with books. I
Mm,
prefer to kind of sit and read a book. You get some people who can't read, and they go down the route of audio books, which is fantastic.
mhm.
You're still reading because you're still having to use your imagination to visualize and picture what's going on. So,
Right.
I see it as just the same. I've done a few of my books have been turned into audio books, and yeah, I just like I say, for me, I prefer to sit and read even a paperback. I'm not even a tablet person. I can't do the
Mhm.
ebooks either. If it's short, I can,
Yeah.
but I prefer to have a tangible physical book in my hand.
I bought my first reading tablet about let's see, my debut book came out in November of 2021. So I got one maybe a month before that. So getting close to 3 years now, I bought my first tablet. And the only reason I bought the tablet was because my book was going to be available on ebook. And I
Oh,
said,
okay.
well, I need to be able to look at it and see what the end user is going to use.
Mhm.
I've used it over the last 3 years, some, but ironically, was it my daughter? I think it was my daughter. Yes. I believe my daughter dropped it on the driveway a couple months ago. So it's still workable. Actually, when you turn it on and reading something, you can't see the cracks. But if it's off, the spiderweb cracks on the screen is quite. So it's on that list of like, oh yeah, I got to replace that. And I'm kind of like, man, I don't really like reading stuff on that anyways. Do I have to replace it? Can I just, I do have the Kindle app on my phone. I could, but that's a hard. It's a struggle. I've done it a few times. Read part of books on my phone. It's
Mhm.
so small and it almost makes me upset to read on my phone. I don't enjoy it. A full length novel at least.
Oh yeah, I couldn't do that.
You know.
I struggle just to read someone's Facebook status online most of the time. It's it's. I've got as you can see, I've got a pretty big phone. Screen wise, it's a fair size,
Yep.
and and even with that, I have to try and just occasionally enlarge it to see things. And my eyesight's not that bad,
Hmm.
but to be concentrating on like a page no, I think I'd just struggle. I wouldn't enjoy reading it the same as I do with a paperback book as well,
Yeah.
because you can kind of just the feeling of turning the page.
Yep.
It gives you that sense of achievement.
No, it absolutely does. It's one of the things that I did another item I talked about with Jonas because we were just talking about the industry and talking about it. And I'm the same way. I like to hold a physical book when at all possible. But besides being an author, I'm now a small business owner and I have to be honest with my audience. And what 70% plus of my sales are ebooks.
Hmm.
So I know the majority of reading that's being done, at least in my experience, and I know it is through the industry, is a lot of digital books are being read. And there's a number of reasons for it. But so I embrace it because I want people to buy my books on ebooks or buy my ebooks. But at the same time, man, if given my preference, I'd rather hold a physical book. There's
Oh,
something about the smell, the touch, everything about it. It's just, I don't know.
yeah, it's an experience, and of course, if you're on vacation, you're sitting beside the beach. It's one of those things where nobody steals a book. In
Right.
fact, I think is it Iraq? Yeah, in Iraq, you see all the Medina book markets, and you see the books on the
Hmm.
side, and they're just left out overnight because there's a saying in Iraq that the readers don't steal, and no thieves don't read, and readers don't thief, or something along those lines.
I've
So,
never
but
heard that before. That's
yeah, it's
great.
quite good. Yeah, they don't. They've got no locks on the bookshop. Yeah, they're just. Yeah, it's really really fantastic. But yeah, no, and of course books don't go flat, which is the other bonus.
Correct.
They don't crack, they don't break, they don't short circuit, and that kind of thing. And
When your
now,
daughter drops the book on the driveway, it
yeah.
might get a little scratch, but it's not going to crack.
But I have to ask though, are you the kind of person that neatly goes through every single page of the book and then folds it and puts it back on the shelf, or do you see something that interests you and dog ear the page and fold it in half when you get to the bit that you're going to sleep of a night time and open it back up again? Or because there are a lot of Cruel people out there.
So before we started filming, I said, well, in case we have to do any or I have to make note of anything, I went and grabbed a sticky pad and a pen
Mhm.
from my desk, which is across the room. So I take a sticky pad note, and normally I fold it in half, actually. So I'll fold it in
Mm.
half, and that becomes so that is my bookmark in my books that
Hey.
I'm normally reading. I I won't say I've never dog-eared a page because I think I actually did. I had this weird experience the other day. It was a couple days before we were filming this. My daughter and I were going out Wednesday evening after work, and we're heading to one of my favorite places, Costco, which is a big super
Mhm.
shopping place that they have here in the United. I don't know. Do they have Costco overseas? They have Costco in
I
England?
haven't. They don't have them in the UK. I'm just trying to
Not in the
think if
UK.
I've seen
Okay.
them anywhere else in Europe or anywhere, but not that I can think of.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I've been to them in the US
You've
anyway.
been in, okay. So we were on our way there, and we were not from my house. I was about half mile down the road, and I heard that something got hit and like hit under the car, but there was nothing in the road. I didn't see anything in the road. And then immediately I heard I heard my tire. So there was a driveway
Oh.
there. I pulled off into the driveway. There was a couple up there on the porch. They were looking at me like, "Who is this Yahoo?" I live in the country, and a lot of people have guns, and they'll shoot at you in a heartbeat. Kidding, kidding, kidding. But I, kind of came behind the car, waved my hand, and said, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." No, I I just popped out, and they're like, "Is everything okay?" And I was like, "I got a flat. Do you mind if I put my spare on?" "Oh yeah, you need help?" "No, I've done this before." So I pop everything out, put the spare on, drive home, tell my daughter we're not driving 30 minutes on a donut, small spare tire.
Oh yeah.
Go back home, which was good because the spare didn't have a lot of air. So I ended up having to. My neighbor came over with his compressor, and we filled that up. So that was an adventure. And well, the next morning I go to get my tire fixed, and I said they weren't old tires, so I just got one, the cardinal sin. I
Mhm.
didn't get two because I was like, I spent a lot, and these tires are like 6 months old.
Yeah.
So got it replaced, and as I came to pay, she held up and she said, "This was what was inside your tire," because the I knew the tire couldn't be fixed because the cut was like just on the side of the tread into the tread, and it was long.
Oh
It was
wow.
like 3.5 inch long cut on the tire, which I haven't seen that
Yeah.
before when I've had flats. So she held it up, and what it was a worn down brake pad.
Wow.
So somehow that had been fallen off someone's car, and it must have been in the road, and I must have kicked it
Mm.
up somehow, and miraculously, I mean, it happened at a great spot. We were safe. It wasn't anything. It was
Yeah.
money I wasn't planning on spending. But it was crazy to have like this brake, like one of those things that you just don't expect. It's like
Yeah.
the brake pad happening
Which
inside
is
my tire.
yeah, it means it's worn down that much that the pistons actually push the brake pad out. It's dropped out of somebody's car. Can you imagine that there's probably some guy another 10 mile further down the road who went to press the brake pedal. He couldn't stop. No wonder everybody was out on their porches.
Well, there are some lakes around here too, so maybe
Yeah.
maybe there's a missing person now. I have no idea. I'm not. I should go troll the lakes this afternoon to see if there's any cars submerged. But
Oh,
no, one
yeah.
one of those life experiences though. So
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly how you feel. Though I've got to go and have four brand new tires on my car tomorrow. It developed a little bit of a pull to the left, and
mhm.
there's a saying in England: if you own a Jag, it'll pass anything except a petrol station. And and of course, I took it in and I said, look, it's got a bit of a pull to the left. I said normally it's to go in to fill up with gas, but it wants to pull into the left all the time, not just at the gas stations. So I said, can you have a look at it? It's probably just the wheel alignment. It's probably just come out of whack. And he got it up, and yeah, the tires were all in a right state, and which is normally something I'm normally pretty meticulous on and on top of, but I really let it slip. So yeah, four new tires on that tomorrow morning, Monday morning. What day is it? Saturday today,
Today's
isn't
Saturday that we're filming, yes. So
it?
that's okay. That
It's
no
been a long
problem.
day.
No problem. Well, another thing too, I don't want to get too far about saying I don't most of the time I don't decorate for a guest. So I was like, well, I'm having Gavin on. I know you live in England, and I'm like, what do I have that actually I have a second thing that's I just thought about it. I have another thing that's
Mm.
British. But so we went with the fit today was of course now we got a
Hey.
pentagram there, but I went and saw Def Leppard and Motley Crue 2 summers ago, I believe. They did a stadium tour here in the United States. So my Def Leppard is my homage to your home country. So
Oh well, thank you. Well, but in return, I've got a shotgun on the wall in the background now. So.
if I had known, I would have brought the arsenal out and lined it up, and we could exchanged gun
Oh
stories.
yes, we had a little bit of fun. I got the Browning 9mm here,
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
you're ready to roll, man. You got that
yeah,
on the desk
uh,
in case
yeah.
someone
Because
kicks in that door,
it's
you
a,
can just turn right around and take care of business.
and then there's the fun stuff. And then that's for my other rifle. That's I keep a whole mixture of things here that are just rattling around on the desk. So
You got better toys than I do. So, I've got a bunch of memorabilia from around the world, but mainly the Middle East. A dear friend of mine just retired a couple years ago. He was part of Fifth Group, so
oh,
he was in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I mean, name a country over there. He was there, and he'd always when he first started doing deployments, he'd always bring me back something. Eventually that became flags, which were amazing. I mean, I've got the flag that was flying between Iraq and Jordan during the Operation Iraqi
oh
Freedom
wow.
on the border. I got that flag. I got a flag from Kosovo that was flying over a compound, and but he'd always be like, "What do you want?" And I'd always be like, we'd be on a phone call or whatever, and I'd be like, the letter C and the number 4. And he's like, dude, you can't ask for that shit. What are you doing? I was like, no, no, no. I don't know what you're talking about. And like, and then I'd be like, how about an AK? You can send me pieces, can't you? And he'd be like, dude, you're getting flags. And I'm like, man, I want some cool leftover, like something fun. And
Yeah.
what's funny was he's since retired. A good friend of his, so a mutual friend of mine, got married last year. I went up to the wedding in upstate New York, and of course, brought a gift. I wasn't in the wedding party, but I was part of the process. I had some duties I had to do. Um, well, the guy that's was getting married is still active duty, so I couldn't post any pictures. I don't use his name in anything.
Mhm.
But he ended up giving me 2 gifts, which was pretty amazing. The first one, and when I opened it, I first freaked out. He gave me a Rolex, and
Oh
I was
wow.
just like, holy
Wow.
cow, this can't be real. And he's like, no, I got this in Iraq. And I was like, dude, that's even cooler than it being real because I can't accept a real one. So I actually don't have it on today. I normally am wearing it. I'm wearing a different watch today. But so I have this Rolex that was bought in a bazaar in northern Iraq and
Wow.
um an Oyster Perpetual. So really cool watch. But then the other thing he gave me that really meant a lot was he ended up bringing me back some optics from a rifle, and they were deployed for I think about 6 months last year, and this is kind of an homage back to your homeland. So he said one of he was we integrate a lot of our military groups on these operations over in Iraq and stuff, and he was basically embedded with a group that included SEALs, SAS, Delta guys, CAG guys. So there was a whole bunch of these badasses together. Well, the SAS guy brought him this optic and was like, "Hey, this thing's not working right." And so he's a gun. He's the weapons specialist on his team. So he takes it apart, finds that it's just like one little thing that kind of got out of place inside with the glass and the optics or whatever. So he
Mhm.
puts it back together, gives it to the guy, and the SAS guy's like, "No, I don't want it. Give me a new one. I don't want it. I don't want it to fail on a mountain mission."
Yeah.
So here he's got this optic, and he's like, "So it's basically a discarded optic." So
Wow.
I got it
Hey.
as a gift. And he was just like, "This has seen action." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And he goes, "You know what I'm saying by that, don't you?" And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Really?" He goes, "Yeah." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna enjoy mounting this one on my weapon." So and it works really good, I can attest. So
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, there's I mean, the one bar which I go to regularly in Dorchester here. There's a big red bin on the outside, and when you come back off tour, you're meant to. Basically it's an amnesty bin, and you can chuck in anything that you've souvenired
yep.
without and no, nothing ever goes in there. And of course, the guys that come back from tour, the majority of the British
Mhm.
soldiers, they've all got a little something. Most of the time, it's something they shouldn't have. Um, and there's kind of two kinds of them. It's kind of the one comes back and says, "Hey, I've got this. I'm not really meant to have it. Do you want to buy it?" Or you get the other ones who turn around and go, "I got this, and I'm really not meant to have it. And what am I going to do? Do you want it? Have it? Take it, please." Um, so
That's
I'm like,
funny.
"Yeah, just bring it all down."
Love it.
Yeah, it's
Love it, love it,
all
love
good
it.
fun.
The other thing that I have up here is so I came to London be 2 years ago
Jesus.
this Thanksgiving, and
Mhm,
I can't say his name, but
mhm.
one of my readers over in London said, "Hey, let's get together." So I ended up meeting up with him, and uh, he gifted me that.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's the hard hats what they wear. And he does a lot of, at the time. I think he's switched since then. I
Mhm,
believe he's out. I know where I can't say where he's at now, but he's switched divisions or departments, whatever they're called there. But at the time, he was doing a lot of the diplomatic security work.
oh, okay.
So he was actually guarding 10 Downing Street. And so he actually, right before I was getting ready to come, about 2 weeks before, and he's like, "Hey, would you like to get down and get a picture in front of the door?" And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Hell yes, I'd like to." So I'm all excited. I'm even told a few people, "Hey, I'm got my book ready. I'm gonna get a picture." And he took a picture of my first book, The Body Man, in front of 10 Downing Street, and I posted that. He said, "You can post this online," because nobody was in the picture. It was just his
Mhm.
hand holding it. So really cool, especially from a historical standpoint. And I'm a history
Yeah.
nerd. But I'm like, hey, I'm gonna actually get to stand there. So I get there, I meet with him, and being very British as he is, and he worked that night before. I think he was working at like the Russian embassy, outside the Russian
Mhm.
embassy or something. So he worked a night shift. So that day before I meet him, he connects with me. He goes, "Hey, you want to meet at 6 a.m.?" And I'm like, 6 a.m.? I mean, I guess, like, for breakfast. He's like, "No, for a pint." It's like, 6 a.m. for a pint. It's like, what the hell? So, being the good bloke I am, I met with him at 6 a.m. and, we had a great but he had told me that night or that day before when we were going to meet, he's like, "By the way, we can't do Downing Street." And I was like, "No, no, that's cool. That's, any reason why?" He goes, "Yeah." And they were having, at that time, these protesters were coming and, throwing like food and paint and just throwing crap all over like artwork, and
Oh,
they were
yeah, I
doing all
remember
kinds of
that.
stuff. Well, apparently two of them got onto Downing Street, and their goal was to throw paint on the prime minister's door.
Mm.
They were stopped ahead of time. But because they were able to get in, like somehow, they didn't climb over. Somehow they were able to weasel their way in and convince
Mhm.
someone of something. Because of that, it's not a magistrate, but maybe it's a magistrate. Whoever's in charge of the security for Downing Street, who's not a police officer,
Yeah, they locked
he,
it down.
yeah, said nobody is going on that street for a while. Like, they just, doesn't matter who you are unless you have the right credentials. No, no visitors, no friends, no family. So he's like, "Sorry, mate, no Downing Street." And I'm just like, these
Uh,
damn protesters are messing with my life now. What in the
yeah,
world?
that's it. We're gonna have to sort them out.
So maybe we'll try it again. I'll have to reach out to him here, since I'll be back. I'm planning to be back in London for Thanksgiving again this year, or around Thanksgiving. Maybe we'll see if the world's not on fire in Thanksgiving. Or we were talking offline, about, where you are, and about,
Yeah,
getting alerts and that kind of stuff. And
it's
so
crazy.
yeah, talk about that. I guess from just a citizen standpoint, is there like a palpable fear going on right now of
Amongst a lot of people,
unrest?
yeah.
Is there?
There's, I mean, there's kind of several sides to this story,
Mhm.
and a lot of it can just be brought down to perception at the end of the day.
Right.
You've got one lot of people who are protesting against all the immigrants that are coming in. There's a lot of
Mhm.
illegal immigrants being brought into the country, and then you've got another lot who are protesting the protesters. So, and what's happening is, again, a lot of this is just down to knowledge and education and what they do and don't know, what they hear amongst themselves, and
Mhm.
they fuel their own fire sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know, we we've got these illegal immigrants coming in, and the majority of people are seeing them as a problem. And we're only a tiny island.
Mhm.
We're already overcrowded. We're already, at a financial burden. We've got a housing crisis. We've got financial crisis. We've got all types of things going on. You struggle to get children into schools because there's no spaces. You
Mhm.
struggle to get into hospitals. Um, Chances of seeing a dentist, you've got a more chance of like hitting the sun with a snowball. There's not much going on where and we're already bursting at the seams, and there's more and more of these immigrants coming over, so you can
Right.
understand why a lot of people are really really against it, especially when they
Mhm.
can't get access to things or can't get their children in school and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then when there's other people who can't get housed and can't get homes, and all of a sudden the homeless problem is going up and up and up. People are living on the streets, but the government are paying to put immigrants in hotels and holiday camps and whatever else. We got problems with I mean, even the army camp down the road from me, Weymouth, it's actually filled at the minute. You know, you got soldiers on the street, and the army camp is filled full of illegal immigrants,
Hmm.
and the soldiers are homeless
Or
who've served
homeless.
the
Yeah.
country. So you can understand how there's a lot of tension and a lot of people who are really annoyed with what's going on. So
Yeah.
they're, and then to make matters worse, as if this wasn't bad enough, the crime rate has gone up exponentially.
Hmm.
Some of it violent crime, and the catalyst not so long back, or the trigger for what's going on now, there was an individual who went and with a knife, and he attacked. There was a small girls kind of Taylor Swift event thing, and he
Yep.
went in and stabbed and killed three and injured others and whatever else. And
Yeah.
you know, and then there was this great big media argument saying, well, he's British, he was born in Wales and whatever else. And then there's the other side saying, well, no, he came from some remote African village where his parents were kind of
Hmm.
his mom was already pregnant. They came over to the UK
Right.
as immigrants, and then
Yep.
all right, he was born over here, but a goldfish born in a stable doesn't make it a horse. And so of course, they're just
Right.
so and so this whole thing is just getting out of hand, and
Hmm.
yeah, and that's why there's a lot of riots on the streets right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
Probably could be solved with a little bit more communication. But
Yeah.
instead, the government's coming on to the likes of the news shows and saying, we don't know what's causing this. And I'm watching thinking, well, I know, and
Hmm.
everybody else in the
I
UK
know.
knows.
Right.
So how come you don't? Because either
Yeah.
you're living in an ivory tower, or because we all seem to know what's causing it, but
Right. But except the people that are causing the problem don't seem to
exactly, yeah.
acknowledge. Yeah. Well, it's amazing that we have the same, almost verbatim, the same
Mhm,
discussions. Again, we talked before we went on, like, well, we don't, and we're not getting into politics of it, but these are events happening in our life, and these are things that in a way I think bleed into our writing because of what we're living through. And yeah, same exact thing happening on, I mean, we've had for years they've been talking about the southern border, and
mhm,
one side says you can't let these people come in because there's monsters that are some of them are, not all, but some of them are monsters, so you can't have them. And the other side says, hey, we're open country, people should be allowed to come in. And to me, the reasonable side of that is, yeah, we are a country of immigrants. We were, that's what the United States really formed from, which came
mhm.
from, hey, guess what? Your country. We
Yay!
we we fled all that mess that you've still got going on
That's
because
it.
we didn't like that crap. But
Exactly.
no, so
Uh,
we came over here, and I mean, as me personally, yeah, I want people to come to this country, and I want people to have an opportunity to come to this country. I don't think it's unreasonable to say, hey, we want to check you out first.
yeah.
And when you get over here, sure, if you need help to get going, we've vetted you, you're good. We say, hey, you're not wanted criminal in your country. Absolutely, come to our country. But same problem you're having. We've got like really valuable hotel rooms in New York City that are filled and being paid, and 3 meals a day are being paid for these people that have come into the country, and they've come in illegally. And then we have mass homeless, where in some places, yes, there's food kitchens. Some places have shelters for these guys, but especially for veterans and stuff, we have a lot of these people that they are just living in abject poverty, and they can
Mhm.
get, some of them get stuff, yes, but some of them don't get stuff. And
Yeah.
so when you do see people coming over illegally and being given keys to the kingdom, basically,
Mhm.
versus people that were here, born here, maybe served for their country here in the military, and are basically getting, kind of shoved under the carpet.
Yeah.
That fires people up. And so that fires up one side, and it seems like the other side is always then saying, well, you're not being, kind, you're not being gentle, you're not being understanding. And it's like, well, maybe you're not being reasonable though. So I mean, it ends up being a word of words, which
Oh
is
yeah.
which
Well,
is
the
what
thing is,
social media has basically gotten us
oh
to
yeah,
in our
and I
life.
mean, so I've lived over in the States twice. My wife's a green card holder. She's a legal permanent resident in the United States.
Hmm.
I the reason I'm not there now is quite simply because of the fact that I decided to stay within the legal parameters. So for me to say to anybody anywhere, that it's wrong to move to another country and want a better life for your family, yourself, and your children,
Hmm.
I'd be a hypocrite.
Hypocrite. Yeah.
But there's a right way of doing it. I
Right.
didn't just come over on a canoe. I didn't cross your southern border with a backpack. What I did is I landed with a visa and went through the process of starting the petition off and doing it legally. And
Yeah.
and what I did is before the time. Now I could have stayed there after my visa ran out
Hmm.
and then gone through the whole kind of, well, I'm here now and I've applied for this and and
Right.
I could have, but I didn't. What I did, and I knew full well it was going to take longer. I went back to the UK to stay within the legal parameters of
Hmm.
my time being there. I've got to go back through the whole system again. Now it's going to take a lot longer to do everything for me to be able to get my green card. But the bottom line is I'm stuck in. I can't apply for a tourist visa and a resident visa at the same time.
Interesting. Okay.
So, because because well, you can't be both. You either want to live here or you want a holiday here. So, which one is it?
Right.
So I kind of get that, but it's kind of annoying in the meantime. While one application is not going anywhere just yet.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, I've digressed a little bit. Sorry, waffling on.
No,
But the
that's
bottom
okay.
line is, I'm trying to do it properly.
Yeah.
You know,
No. And a
I
lot of times you get punished for doing it the right way, which that's what really hardens people and makes them upset, is
yeah.
that to do things right, you get punished. It's almost kicks into one of those phrases, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Well, yeah, but for certain things you should ask for permission, but it's like, no, actually asking for forgiveness will get you what you want faster a lot of times. And it's like,
Yeah.
what's that takes away, and you do right because it's the correct way to do things.
Mhm.
But it's difficult when you see people do wrong and get rewarded for it. It's a
And
challenge.
bear in mind, I've helped people. Part of my job in the past has been able to help people to get passports to other countries and to get
Hmm.
citizenship, to get away from if they've helped allied governments, for example, to
Yeah.
with intelligence. So there are connections that I have and friends that I have within the intelligence industry where if I really kind of said, look, I really need to call in a favor, I could probably go that route
Yeah.
and cheat and coming through the back door, and I choose not to.
Hmm.
So if anybody could do it, it would be me,
It'd
or
be
the
you.
kind of
Yeah.
people I work with, and I still choose to do it the
Do it the right
correct
way.
way. So and that's, and again it goes along with an argument I had with my oldest stepson, not an argument but a debate. He was on about the illegal immigrants again coming over, and a lot of them
Hmm.
are coming over to the UK to get
Hmm.
away from something called Sharia law, which is a major problem in their country, and blah
Yep.
blah blah. Then they come over here and then insist that Sharia law is given in. Yeah, it's like, you do realize that's what you
Right.
were trying to get away from, right?
Yeah.
And I said, the way it should be is if anybody comes to a particular country, anybody going to any country, they should assimilate it. It's
Hmm.
and he said, well, why shouldn't they have their own laws and their own rules? And I said, well, okay, here's an example. I said, I went over to live in Miami for a while. I said, now, I didn't go over there and said, right, I'm English, so I'm going to drive on the left. And I'll drive down the road and say, hey, come on, move out of my way, everybody. I'm English. I want my own laws and rules here. So, yeah, I said, how long do you think it would take before, a state trooper pulled me over and said, I don't care if you're English, this is not happening. So I said, it doesn't work. You can't have a country that has two lots of laws, or you bring your own laws to that country. You either assimilate to the laws within the country or you don't go. I
Yeah.
said, and that's it. I said, I went over to America. I said, and one of the first things I did when I moved there, one of the very first things I did is I went down to the careers office, to the military, to ask if I could join up as a reserve to give something back to the country that I wanted to live in.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it turns out that unfortunately I'm now past the upper age limit, so,
Oh
so I
no.
can't. So what I did is I actually got in touch with the Civil Air Patrol, which is
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
and
aware of
they
it.
do all. Yep, they do all the search and rescue missions and that kind of thing and whatever else. It's all volunteers. And I got in touch with Captain Rick Young, an absolutely fantastic guy in Arizona. I said I intend on moving back to Arizona when the time's right. I said,
Okay.
would you take me on board? And he said, yes, there's a place here for you. And so that was the
Wow.
first thing. I said, the country I'm going to live in is the country I'm going to be supporting.
Yeah.
So, if I can't give anything back to the country in the, immediate way other than volunteering, that's what I will do.
Well, that as someone who's born and raised here, you're welcome here anytime. We want more people with that thought process here, and I think that makes everyone's life better. Again, it doesn't matter left, right, what sides, all that. It's like, look, there's common ground to be found,
Yeah.
and I think one of the best things you could do in life is to give back in whatever way that might be. Wherever you're needed, take some of your time and give it back to the community where you live. Whether it's just helping your neighbors do stuff around their yard or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be a formal volunteer program, but
Mm.
help people out. I mean, my neighbors where I live out here are super great. Like I mentioned earlier about the tire.
Yeah.
Told my neighbor about what happened. He's like, I got a compressor. You need it. I was like, really? That would be so helpful. It's like, yeah, those small little things, just humanity. I
Yeah.
think we're getting, and it's not nothing new. It's not like we live in a time period where all of a sudden things got really bad. I mean, you study history, you study the Crusades, you study all the different, Genghis Khan, you study all this stuff. It's like, yeah, the world's been pretty jacked up
Oh yeah.
basically since it started. Now, though, you know how bad it is because, like, I don't know if they have this in England, but here in the United States, and that you might have experienced it while you lived here, we have what they call Amber Alerts. So
Mhm.
your phone will all of a sudden buzz and like make this real annoying sound, and it will say missing 7-year-old girl, blah blah blah, in a Mitsubishi this, and it will give the description with a North Carolina plate, and it will tell you that be on the lookout for this child that was abducted, and it's typically by a family member, honestly.
Yeah,
But
usually.
it normally is. It's like that's where a lot of the abuse happens is a friend or family member, which is scary.
Mm.
But yeah, so we get these Amber Alerts. Yeah, well, you didn't have that, even a couple decades ago, you didn't have the
No.
technology for that. So just everything now is at your fingertips, is where I'm going with that. Where if a kid gets abducted, if someone gets shot, if someone gets stabbed. You were mentioning how the incident, which I did read about the incident regarding the girls and Taylor Swift. I mean, Taylor Swift, they just canceled her three Austria concerts because
Yeah.
of a terrorist threat. And I think they arrested the guys. So there's still a lot of information that's kind of not out there. But I mean, here you had people that literally I mean, I know Americans that posted videos I saw on social media. People flew into this country to go see one or more shows, which is not cheap.
No.
And I'm not saying it wasn't wrong for them to cancel the thing. I think the security trumps everything else.
Well,
But
especially after what happened with Ariana Grande here in the UK not so long back when she had her
yes,
concert and similar kind of problem. With a Islamic terrorist attack.
right.
Um, so yeah, it's
Crazy.
and we do have those Amber Alerts over here. It's only a
Okay.
recent thing over here, but yeah, we do have them. They've started to come to the majority of countries now. Here's an interesting little fact for you. Do you know whose brainchild that is? Do you know who's behind, who owns the company that does the Amber Alerts?
I should know, but it's not coming to me. So tell me.
Ghislaine Maxwell's sister,
Oh,
Jeffrey
that's
Epstein's.
uh,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Jeffrey's Island got a mention in my last book because I had a horrific thing that an ex-president was doing, and I'm like, well, we might as well reference where the horrific things have happened here
Why not?
recently, and
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. There's I think
Amazing
there's
that list of names still hasn't made its way into the mainstream consciousness, huh? Hmm.
everything else has. So I mean, she's the only person in the history of probably the world accused and convicted of sex trafficking nobody to nobody.
I know. I know.
It's kind of where did everything go? Where did everyone go? But yeah, we said we were going to avoid this, didn't we? But we got down a
Well,
dark path.
we're avoiding politics because we're talking about stuff that's happened in our world.
Yeah.
But we can really tie that back to fiction and in a way, in a negative sense, because I tell you what, it's harder now to make stuff up because most of the time,
Oh
the real world headlines that are happening on almost a daily basis are
man.
stuff and again, I'm not politicizing or bringing up COVID on what people believe or vaccination, any of that stuff,
Mm,
but if I had pitched the idea 5 years ago of, hey, there's going to be a global outbreak and we're going to lock the country down, a story idea, we're going to lock the country down for, a couple of weeks, which turns into months, which turns into you could lose your job or get kicked out of the military for not getting vaccinated. And then this is going to happen and people are going to still wear masks. I saw people in the mask in the store the other day.
mhm.
Again, I don't know if it was COVID related, but I had not seen people in masks for years in stores and now still regularly on a basis. If I had pitched that as a story idea 5 years ago,
They just said
oh,
no,
but they
it's
would have been
insane.
like, you've got a stupid imagination and no one's going to ever believe that was going to
Yeah.
want to read that. Well, now the dilemma is, do you include that in modern fiction? Because guess what? it was true. All that stuff really
Oh
happened.
no,
It's like you can't
it's
make stuff
beyond
up
crazy.
now.
Oh, I know, yeah. Well, funnily enough, at the point, well, probably between a year and 2 years before the whole COVID thing happened, before the vaccination thing happened, and everything else, I wrote a book called Questionable Tactics.
Okay.
I haven't talked about it too much, right?
Okay.
And
This
it's
is already a questionable book. Tell me about this.
yeah. So basically, what happens is there's this fella who seems to have the ability to be able to remotely kill anybody anywhere,
Nice.
just pretty much at the push of a button,
I got a
right?
list if he's still
And
available. So.
so what he does, he kind of he's that confident. He gets in touch with the White House, and he says, I'm that confident." He says, "I'm going to give you a list of 10,000 American people who I'm going to kill." He says, "And to prove I can do it, today at 4 o'clock, I'm going to kill the Secretary of Defense." So they fly him out to Camp David. They've got him under lockdown, blah blah blah. And next thing you know, this the Secretary of Defense he starts shaking and vomiting, and he's dead. And they're like,
Wow.
"Oh, wow, how the hell did you do that?"
How did he do it? Yeah.
And then he's there, he's saying, "Right, that list of 10,000 Americans," he said, "basically, I'm going to kill them unless you meet my demands." And then there's this whole kind of scenario. What they do, they get a guy, Scott Lomax, out of prison
Well,
to
don't give it away. Are you going to publish this thing at some
yeah.
point?
Oh, it's published. It's out there.
Oh, it's out there.
Yeah, it's out in the open world. But yeah,
Okay.
what I had to do though, I had to. It, it, I don't want to give it away, but
Yeah, don't give it away.
there's a way he wants to reduce the population. He wants to trim the population, and in the book, I wrote this elaborate delivery system on how he was going to inject each and every person on
Okay.
the planet with a mystery juice, and quite easily, and quite doing it all remotely, and blah blah blah. And this delivery system was so unique, and in the end, I had to cut it out the book for
Hmm.
fear of it being replicated.
Yeah.
It was, because like you say, with art and fiction and life being so closely related at the moment,
Right.
it was something that I thought if somebody reads that, they could do this. They could literally pretty much,
Yeah.
inject the planet with anything they wanted. And I thought, I'm not putting that out. I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable putting that knowledge out there in the world.
Right. Yeah, I found the same thing when I was doing some research. It's probably been about 7 or 8 years ago. I started looking into nanotechnology
Ooh,
for a storyline, and the more I dug into it, the more I thought, even if this isn't necessarily fully available, it's going to be at some point, and it can be a way to literally kill anybody. And the bad thing is, if I'm researching it and I'm finding examples online,
mhm.
that technology probably has already existed in DARPA and
More
different
than likely.
places for 20 years.
Yeah,
It's not, it's probably so far beyond where I can possibly find any information about it now that it's scary. It's really
yeah.
scary.
Going back to probably either pre 2000 or early 2000s. I remember at the time a project, even back then, that they tested and it was functional.
Hmm.
And that was to be able to DNA sequence murder by DNA. They could literally they could put a poison into a water system, and it would only kill the person whose DNA targeted.
Yes.
It wouldn't. Nobody else would be affected by it apart unless there was a DNA match. I don't want to
Right.
go again too deep into the whole how it all works, but
Yeah.
yeah, So, I mean that was like 20-ish years ago. The stuff they've got now is mind blowing. I
Yeah.
mean, just scary,
Yeah.
scarily mind blowing. Yeah.
So So where do we go? Where do we go from where do we go from a writing perspective when all that's out there? But I think the amazing thing is we do adjust to the technologies. And
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, where I try to lead people back to is that, look, stories are an escapism. So that's why, like, I made a conscious effort not to really, in the last couple of years when I've been writing stuff, not to put really stuff in there regarding masks or COVID.
Mhm.
Not partly because it's been so politicized and so like people on both sides have been so vocal about it, but also because going through that time period of life, I think the majority of people want to forget it happened or
Yeah.
want to just say we're past that. So I don't know if I want to pick up a book and read about it and, and then walk that fine line of what do you put in that book that won't piss
Trigger
off
or yeah,
either
one
side.
side or the
So
other. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, look, it was a laborious time, the entire thing, and nobody wants to go back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, as for like kind of storylines, the sky's the limit. But I was given some fantastic advice not so long back when it comes to writing, uh, and it's changed my perspective a little bit,
Okay.
because plots, the way we are now, it's pretty much all been done. And if it
Right.
hasn't been done, like you say, the sky's the limit with what you can do.
Yeah.
So the advice I was given was, don't make complex plots, make easy plots or simple plots with complex characters. And I thought,
Yes.
that's a better way to do it. Let's
Right.
kind of, because. And I remember when I first got into writing, and and even with the writing of the synopsis and everything, somebody said to me, "Look, plots are 10 a penny. We nobody cares about the plot. What they
Mhm.
care about is the person, the main character, the protagonist.
Yes.
Make them fall in love with the protagonist, and even though they know, just like we know Bond is going to succeed, just like we know
Right.
Bourne is going to make it home, even though we know it's going to happen, we want to see if and how, and we want to care enough to kind of. So that
Right.
was where everything changed for me. I
Yeah.
started chucking all the emotion in there and the stuff that men don't like to talk about.
Yeah. No, total great advice. So let's pivot that into just talking about characters and all that. The book you wrote, How to Tell If Someone is Lying.
Hmm.
So maybe give a little synopsis of how that story came about, and then let's go through some scenarios. And I could have used you a couple years ago because I went through a pretty uh not a fun separation divorce. So if I had you on my side, I might have fared better in this. I could have
Well,
known if the truth was coming out or not.
yeah,
So
that's it. Yeah, or you could have just turned around to me and said, "Look, can you stand up in front of the court?" And every time she lies, call her out.
my human lie detector test
That's
this
it.
year.
So, well, I mean, that's a non-fiction book, and it is based on either work I've done in the field, or work I've done privately for security or that kind of thing. Security companies or intelligence or
Mhm.
investigation companies, and even some personal experiences as well. And so, I have a little confession, because the title is awful. How to Tell If Someone's Lying. The reason, the reason it's called that is purely because it was based on a Google search. It was a way to cheat the algorithms to
Right.
to get my book to the top of the list, as it were. So which contributed it to becoming a bestseller, and I will, in air quotes, say category bestseller before I get
Category that,
shot.
yeah.
Uh,
How
um,
dare you misrepresent yourself, Gavin Stone? What in the world?
I
The
know.
thought
So
police are going to come after
I
you.
know. Don't want to get into trouble with the wrong people. So yes, it was in its category on Amazon, was a bestseller. So yeah, not New York Times or anything like that. But yeah, and it continues to sell and do really, really well. And like I said, that's all based on my experience in kind of, I'm ranked number 9 currently in the world body language expert.
Hmm.
I've got a lot of experience in deception detection. I've worked for law enforcement. I've trained law enforcement and intelligence guys and all manner of people, and even private companies like wanting to interview, knowing that they're getting the right staff,
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, as well
So,
as insurance companies.
so who ranks that, and then how is that done? So how does what's the matrix or what's the qualifications for knowing that you really are number 9? Yeah.
Okay, so
Mr. Number One category Amazon bestseller. Prove yourself here. So
no problem at all. So it's done through a, an organization, if you want to call them that, called Global Gurus Top 30.
okay.
And they've got a criteria where you have to, they look at what you've done, what you're doing. They look at any books you've written,
Mm,
any articles you've written, any collaborations you've done, what you bring to the table, the
mm.
research you've done. What there's like a long list of categories, and each category is worth different
Yeah.
amounts of points. They also do a vote as well to see if you're currently active and within the public eye, which contributes so many points towards your final outcome, and so on.
Okay.
And so yes, so there's a mixture of kind of there's quite a criteria to fit, to be able to get a reasonable ranking. I mean, last year I was
Yeah.
like 28.
Okay.
And then yeah, so and then I basically I did a lot of hard work, and new books and that kind of thing that I put out. And then I was really pleasantly surprised when I think it was number number one or number two in the world sent me a message saying, "Congratulations, you're at number nine." I was like, "Well, hey!" So yeah,
So,
that
so
was
what you're saying is you really killed 19 people to get up the list, and
yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah, it
all right.
cost me a fortune.
Just you poison them through this mysterious thing
That's
in
it.
drinking water, and you pushed the
That's
little
the
button and said,
one.
"Take out numbers one through, one through
So
19." They're gone.
yeah, I think if I did do that, I'd certainly be under investigation pretty quick, I reckon. So
Well, if you did do that too, I would say, can you just get to one? Why would you go to nine?
exactly. Why would you stop at nine?
Maybe that's clever though, because that's less suspicious. Who would
That's it.
kill
You've
that many
revealed me
people
now.
just to be number nine? So it's like if Salma Hayek's husband mysteriously died. I mean, how many guys would they be pointing fingers at? Be like,
The majority of the population of the planet Earth, really.
3 billion people probably would be under suspicion.
Yeah.
I would love to know what his security detail is like. He's a billionaire. I'm sure he's got a hearty group of people keeping him safe. So,
Yeah, usually, and I mean, so I mean, I've done. I hate celebrity work. I've done it in the past.
okay,
I'm not allowed to. Not that I'm not allowed to say who I've looked after, but it's generally
yeah,
not the done
it's
thing with the
not
public.
necessary. It's
So,
not necessary. Not
but yeah, I've done a little bit of close protection work, and it's surprising. There was one that I kept on turning down, believe it or not, and that was Tom Hardy.
oh
And
yeah,
he was filming Dunkirk, and part of the film Dunkirk is done here in Weymouth, where I live. And
okay.
my broker at the time was ringing me up saying, "Can you work security?" And I said, "No, no, don't like celebrity work, Keep.
Mhm.
And anyway, he said, I've got someone that, but apparently, and how true this is, I don't know, but apparently, because he kept ringing me back, and I was like, I thought you've got somebody. He's like, yeah, he keeps sacking them.
Hmm. Interesting.
So, and what it was down to, and again, like this is like kind of rumor more than anything else. Apparently, the TV production companies insisted it was part of the contract that he had at least one close protection officer. He didn't want them at all, and in the end,
Okay.
they met an agreement where he said, "Okay, I will have somebody, but I don't want to see them. I don't want them buzzing around me. I just, they dive in if there's trouble. Other than that, I
Yeah,
don't
they
care."
got to be in the shadows, basically.
And of course, people being people, especially if they're new to the game, are like, "Oh, can I get you this, Mr. Hardy? Can I do that? Can I have an autograph? Can I take a photo?" And
Right.
yeah, so they were getting sacked one after the other. But like I say, this was something that we're going back a fair few years, and from what I can remember, that was how it went. But how
Hmm.
much truth is behind it? It might have been any number of things, but that was what the rumors were at the time.
What? Yeah. Yeah, so I have some close contacts that have either done that work or are in that world, and I find it fascinating, and I have tried to learn about it so that I can be a better storyteller. But for like a career path, would I want to spend my time following around? I think some people would be interesting to do it for, but
Mm,
would I want to follow around celebrities and all the, paparazzi and fans that are coming up? Yeah, no, it's kind of like the president. Would I really want to be Secret Service in real life? I tell about the stories, but I really would want that to be my life's work. And again, I don't say that negative because I respect and I know some of the agents, but
mhm.
and I think you've had some interaction with people in all kinds of fields like that.
Yeah.
That's stressful job. Not take out of the fact that I was just reading a book about one of the former agents yesterday, actually,
Mhm.
for some research for a book that I hope to get back to in a couple of years. There's no like thing you sign a contract that says I will take a bullet for the president. And this particular agent that I was reading this book, it was only brought up one time of you understand the ramifications. So it was always just understood. It was never something it was never even discussed again, never brought
Yeah.
up. But just that thought process of not only do I have to keep this person safe, but I possibly might have to stand in front of a gunman for this
Mm.
person. And, that's difficult, especially when you got kids, you got a wife, you have a life.
Yeah.
To be able to get that mindset, and it's a training. It's instinct is what it becomes. You get trained
Mhm.
so hard that you don't have to think, "Oh, gun, what do I do?" If a gun's drawn, you've already acted
Reacted. Yeah.
because of what you've learned to do. But not on my list. And again, at 47, I'm probably not going to be joining that type of lifestyle anytime soon,
No, I wouldn't
or probably
recommend
past my prime.
it.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why you used to turn down the celebrity work, was because you are pretty much guaranteed to get mobbed every time you go out the door.
right.
Give me some rich Chinese businessman that's flying into town for 3 weeks and wants to spend a few quid at the casino all day long. Give me some kind of, fella who's coming in who, just wants to go to a business meeting or whatever. No problem. Nobody knows
Yeah.
him. He's just a fella in a suit. And
Right.
I'll take that all day long, because at the end of the day, the majority of the time you're not going to get looked at and you're not going to get hit. And if you do get hit, it's going to be a professional.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be people throwing pineapple juice.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've had that conversation with people in the past because we've talk about celebrity, and it's come up with like book write with being a writer. And it's,
Mm,
people have even asked me, said, okay, if you were able, if something were to change and you were to just take off, and yeah, you're kind of a big deal, New York Times bestseller, your books get turned into movies, and you become, a quote unquote household name, about the how it would change your life. And it's like, yeah, but from a writing perspective, there's very few writers out there that people would recognize out in the real world.
mm,
There's New York Times bestsellers going to Walmart and the grocery store and the mall
yeah.
every day, and they don't have a throng of people coming up and saying, oh my goodness, you're such and such and your book's over there on the shelf, will you sign it for me? It's like they don't have a clue who that person
No.
is. Same thing with like billionaires. There's a lot of billion, and not a lot in comparison to the people, but there's quite a lot of billionaires out there in the
Mhm.
world. Very few of those billionaires do most average citizen know their name,
That's it. Yeah, it's a
and
short list. That's for
definitely
sure.
don't know what their face looks like. That
Mm,
list is very, the Elon Musks of the world get all the attention, and they have to
that's
have
it.
an extremely robust security team. But the other guy out there that's making 2.5 billion, who probably does have a security team because he's worth 2.5 billion, no one knows who he is.
Yeah,
He's going to Starbucks and he's not having cups thrown at him or anything crazy, so he's fine.
exactly. Well, that actually reminds me. Was it you I was talking to when we were on about James Patterson?
Yes, we talked
And he was
a
on,
little
yeah,
while back about that. Yes,
yeah, on the
good old
flight from
Jim.
New York, and one of the passengers recognized him and turned around and said, I know you. You're the guy who plays Patterson on that TV
That,
program,
yeah,
Castle." So, and again, yeah, it just goes to show that, it doesn't matter. You can be James Patterson, you can be a writer of any kind of. I think probably if anybody's going to get recognized, maybe James Patterson, Stephen King, as a handful of writers.
George R. R.
Um,
Martin is pretty unique looking. He'd
yeah,
be recognized probably, but even that, George R. R. Martin is only known because of Game of Thrones. So if you don't know Game of Thrones, or not only, but in the circle of people
yeah.
recognizing him would be because of
Exactly.
Game of Thrones. So if you don't read that type of stuff,
Mhm.
chances are or watch the show on HBO, chances are that he could walk by you and you'd be like, well, that's an odd looking guy, and that's as far as it would go. So
Exactly. So, but yeah, if even James Patterson can only get recognised on a plane with, like one person full of a plane for 200 people or whatever it is, then I got no worries.
yeah, I know, same thing, and if you're going to achieve a level of fame or fortune, I think that's what I don't know. I know actors that go into the field because they want to get to a certain level where they get the praise and all that. But I don't know. I wonder if you do get in and you all of a sudden start realizing that it's like being the president. If you lose all your anonymity, I've seen interviews with President Obama talking about it, President Bush, of it's the hardest thing I think they have to give up is that once you serve in that position, you never again get to drive a car by yourself down a highway. You
No.
never get
Yeah,
to
yeah.
walk into a grocery store by yourself without multiple people around you. And yes, being recognized because of your face, and also because you got three guys standing around you with earpieces that look like they're going to shoot you at any given point. It's like, well, no thanks. No
Yeah,
thanks.
it's. I mean, it must be nice to be recognised, occasionally. But yeah, that knowing that, like you say, you're never going to be able to have a scruffy day, are you? You're not going to be able to have your jogging bottoms on and your t-shirt and unshaven, go down to the store and
Right.
kind of, just to grab a gallon of milk or whatever. It's not going to
Yep.
happen. So, and if it does, that'll be the day that somebody's there saying, "Let's have a selfie."
Right. Exactly. Um, I've gotten recognized, and I'm a no-name, small-time author. I got recognized one time about 45 minutes away from here, which a place I used to live. So, and I have a lot of friends up there. I'll go there probably this afternoon after we film this and have dinner with a friend. But I was in a grocery store. I was in a grocery store called Publix, and I was walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden I hear this voice, and it wasn't a yell, but it was spoken loud enough that I hear, "Hey, it's the body man." And of course, I turn around. That's a pretty unique phrase. And it was a friend of a friend who had
Oh
read my
wow.
book, who knew who I was, saw my picture. I'd never met this person, and I had had some interaction on Facebook, I believe. So I did recognize when I saw him when I turned around. But that was like the one and only time. And I tell you what, yeah, it was
It
fun.
felt good.
It was kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, it was kind of like, okay, someone knows me as an author, not as, Bruce and Noel's dad
yeah.
or such and such from my company or whatever. So it felt
Yeah.
good. But would I want that to happen 20 times every time I walk into a grocery store or every time
Yeah.
that? I think that would get really, really old.
Yeah,
Um,
eventually it would, and of course, there's always going to be the ones that are they're going to take it too far and say the things where I mean, you get a lot of this, don't you? With like kind of hey, the body man, and and if you everywhere you went, everybody was calling you the body man or whatever. You'd be like, oh, no, come on, not again. So you made me
Look at me. Do
chuckle
I
actually.
really look like the body man? Come on.
I, you brought back a memory when you were on about Publix. I used to drive down to Publix, and they got an
Because
aisle
you lived in
in there.
Florida. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's the grocery store in Miami and
that's
all
the
around.
one to go to in Miami, yeah,
Yeah.
and of course, you got about what 30 aisles or whatever, and then there's one that they call it the English aisle, and you go down there, and you know what it's full of? Curry, curry rice, poppadoms, naan breads, and the only other thing in there is tea bags. So, but that being said, here we've got our supermarkets, and we have like an American aisle, and the majority of stuff in there is jarred hot dogs, marshmallows, Reese's
Dor-
Pieces, and
Doritos, I'm sure. Got to have some Doritos or
oh no, we got Doritos in the main aisle as
on
well,
the
yeah.
main
So,
aisle.
but yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, so that's about it really, and it's kind of apart from one or two chocolates. Where I think they've just taken the worst of everything you have to offer and put it in England.
So when I was 2 years ago, I was in Wales and then I was in England, and my daughter was basically like, just bring me back something yummy. So I had a walkabout day in Wales where I went to the Cardiff Castle and I was there for Christmas, the Christmas market.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't wait to go back this year and do those things again because I love that's the thing that Europe does so much better than the United States is the Christmas markets and stuff. But I saw this candy store, and so I walked in this. I thought, oh, candy store. Well, they'll have something she likes that's very Welsh. Have something from Wales, and they did. They had a ton of candy, but they had two full walls of all American. They had Twix, Skittles, Hostess cupcakes,
Yeah.
Doritos, and it was just all this American stuff. And I'm just like, we have spread our crap around the world, haven't we? But then when I ended up getting her a few things here and there, and then when it wasn't until I was in Heathrow to head back home that I was like, I don't probably have her enough stuff. So I went through the duty free store, and I don't remember now. We'll just say I dropped at least 100 US, maybe a little more on just this and that, and British
Knickknacks, yeah.
cookies in a tin. I still have the tin actually in my kitchen. Um,
Wow.
I bring all this stuff back, and so I'm showering her with, hey, here's some of the stuff that was made in Great Britain and Wales and candies and this and that. What does she like the most of? They were the cookies that were shortbread cookies that the hotel gave me for free. I spent a
The
hundred
complimentary
dollars
ones.
and all this other stuff that then I had to end up eating because she's like, she'd eat a couple little cookies and she'd be like, it's okay, a tea cookie, it's okay, Daddy. It's like, pay 25 bucks for this tin. This is gonna get eaten, darn it. So I
Yeah.
fattened up even more basically.
Oh
So
wow.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Yep. I've yeah, it's one of them things. I actually for every country I've ever been to since my daughter was born, I buy her a little teddy bear.
Mhm.
Still to this day, she's only 11 now, and she's now got like three great big, massive, like kind of big bags, like a bag big enough to fit a mattress in, like mattress bags. These
Yep.
bags filled with teddies, and they've all got like French Kitty and Canada Bear and we got all these different kind of and she every time I bring her one back, she's like, well, what are we gonna call this one? I'm like, I'm running out of names,
My,
kid.
my fiction list is only so long. So Well,
Yes.
we've talked about your nonfiction. You talked about some of your experience, obviously. So let's dive into for our last part of our discussion. Let's talk about where have you gone on the fiction side, maybe where you're gonna continue to go, and
Mhm.
kind of talk about how maybe um, I'm sure you have to walk a fine line of what you say in your books. Like you said, like you already really mentioned, how you don't want to put stuff out there that would give people a blueprint of how to, go kill, indiscriminate people. But maybe talk about the evolution of that and what you're writing, what you're going to be writing, and let's see what you have
Well,
to say.
I'll visit that, to be fair, because one of the things I did is I insisted that everything in the book that I write, the continuity has to be, 100%. So,
Hmm.
if there's a place I've mentioned I've been there, there's nowhere in these books that I haven't been. That's whether it's a hotel or a country,
Right.
I've stayed in it, I've been to it and
That's
visited, and
awesome.
writing from experience. So that's the first thing. Everything that's done is written from experience. And I also made a point. I put these little sections in the book. So the book itself, I'll see if I can flick to one. I can never find one when I'm looking for one. But basically, um, as you read through the story, there will be a stop and there'll be a little panel, a little section, and it'll say tradecraft, and it'll tell
Yes.
you in italics exactly why
Right.
a particular action is done, how it's done, why it's done that way or not done another way, blah blah blah. And all the way through it, no matter what it is, whether it's picking a lock, whether it's whatever the case may be, I've explained the ins and outs and the intricacies of it.
Hmm.
And there was one moral kind of agreement that I had with myself before I started writing any of these. I thought I will tell anybody to do anything when it comes to either surveillance or finding out if they're being followed or anything like that. No problem
Hmm.
at all with any of that, apart from one thing, and that was simply how to make a bomb. I thought I'm not going to tell people how to make explosives. There's no reason, in my opinion, no good reason why anybody needs to start making improvised explosive devices.
Right.
And especially don't want the ingredients in my book.
Right.
So there's one caveat, however.
Uh-oh.
In
Uh-oh.
book 3, I have the characters make an improvised hydrogen bomb and blow up this massive yacht in Weymouth Harbour.
It's
So
only a hydrogen bomb. How many people could make
yeah,
that? Come on. What?
exactly. Actually, this is the scary part. It's not actually as difficult as what people think, but I've I've been deliberately nebulous with the whole kind of quantities and that kind of thing. So it's a bit like somebody if they turn around and say you put some flour and some eggs and stuff in a tin and some bit of sugar and put it in the oven, then you'll have a cake.
Right.
And of course, if you haven't got oven temperatures and you haven't got quantities and you haven't got times and then you can't make the cake.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much what I've done with this hydrogen bomb because
Okay.
again, there's no reason that anybody that I know needs to make a hydrogen bomb. So so that
No.
was it. But other than that, everything in the book is from first-hand experience.
Okay.
And again, there's one exception in book 1. The wife and daughter of the main character gets kidnapped, and I'm lucky enough to have never had that happen, despite
Mhm.
how many people I've asked and paid and offered, and can't get it done. But no, in all seriousness, I've never had that happen, and I'm grateful, and I hope it never does. But yeah, everything else other than the kidnapping of his family is first-hand experience. So yeah, that's when you're reading it, I've been through it.
Do you find the fiction for you is based on the experiences you've had or based on what you've lived with your life? Do you find like the fiction is almost like therapy for you to be able to
Yeah,
tell those stories?
it kind of is in a way, yeah. Something just went bang outside. I don't know whether you heard that on the
Yeah,
mic.
those that group of Islamists, they already heard.
They're coming for me.
He picked up the camera that's in your room and kind of beamed out and said, "Go after Gavin now."
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Bring
Get
me back
that
in.
get that frag grenade ready, Gavin. Come
That's
on.
it. So yeah, we got. Sorry, there's a claymore by the front door. There's a
they,
tripwire.
they got the Claymore mines ready to go off. Be like,
Yeah.
this is gonna be the most powerful episode ever.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. Um, so, so yeah, I forgot where I was going. I was enjoying that. Yeah, therapy. Yes, yeah,
Talk
it
about
has.
therapy. Yes, the
Yeah,
therapy you
has
now
been.
need after the thoughts running through your mind of going, I'm about to blow people up.
Yeah, better start filling the magazine. So yeah, no, it was therapeutic in many ways because When I first started getting into the whole writing thing, it wasn't even my idea. I didn't. It was actually my mother-in-law's who said, "Well,
Mm,
you're okay at telling stories. Why don't you write stories?" And
yeah.
I'm like, "Nah, it's not my thing."
Mhm.
And I did to start with, and I wrote something, and she read it. She says, that's not a book. That's a report."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, well, that's what happened. People don't care what happened. They want to know how you felt, what the smells
Yeah.
were like, what you were feeling."
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's going to take some getting used to, because when you write an intelligence report, facts, details, the most important one, you use a system called BLUF, which stands for bottom line up front.
You leave the emotions
And
out of it and
that's
everything.
it.
Yeah.
Anything that's unneeded and unnecessary is not in there.
Right.
So I had to completely relearn how to write.
Hmm.
And the first one I ever wrote was actually an autobiographical style book based on my life and what I'd been through and whatever else. Anyway, when I read it back,
Hmm.
I looked at it and thought, this is going to start World War III.
Oh
I
no.
thought, there's no way I can put this out there. There's too many. Even changing names, it was too obvious who certain people
Yeah.
were, what events were tied to, and I thought, no, I can't do that. I thought
Can't
I
do
need to
that.
water
Yeah.
it down. So I tried watering it down and diluting it. Unfortunately, I over diluted it. It was that boring that by the time I read it back, even I didn't want to finish reading the damn thing. I tried to reach a happy medium, and it was a friend
Hmm.
from MI6 in the end. I was chatting to him, and he said, "Look," he said, "your best bet is to write it all as fiction." He said, "In
Hmm.
that way, you can do something you did on this job and put it in there, something you did on that
Right.
job, put it in there. You can take the best of all the things you've done and all, and put it in there." He said, "And you're still writing from experience. You're still writing about the things you've done, but you're not sticking to an exact timeline." He said, "You can use bits from all over the place." So that in that book,
Hmm.
that's not how and the order it happened to me in with all the events that have happened, but they're all things that have happened, bit here, one there, one this year, one that year, and I've
Okay.
written the story around the events, as it were.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it was really, really therapeutic, because unlike a lot of like military guys where you get to do parades and you get all that kind of recognition, in this industry you don't.
Yeah.
What you get is a drinking problem.
But exactly. Exactly. No, well, you're quiet, like you're the quiet operators. And that's something that definitely in the course of what I've researched for my books, and it's changed. Like it used to be, like as mentioned earlier, friends that were in the army and special operations. You didn't have social media accounts. You didn't proclaim what you did. I've got so many pictures I've taken over the years that I was able to take the pictures,
Mm,
but it was understood after the first time I went to take them that, hey, any of these photos you ever take, they don't ever see the light of day.
yeah,
They don't get posted on social media. You don't text them to people. You don't email them out. So I have a quite a lot of photographs, or I've seen also. I'd go to my buddy's house when he'd come back from deployments, and I mean, he'd come back with like hard drives of, he'd have one hard drive that's all like movies and stuff because he'd be like, you're stuck, in a forward operating base in Iraq for 6 months of your life. So they would just, be streaming shows and watching stuff off that they had downloaded basically. But then he'd always come back with quite a lot of photos. And there was times he'd start going, he'd be like, oh, this is the latest time we were over in Baghdad. And he would just start flipping through and he'd explain kind of what happened. And then he'd get to this one photo and I'd be like, is that? And he'd be like, yes, that is. And he'd be like, and you can never admit that you saw that. And I'm like,
yeah,
holy crap. So, just kind of wild how, but so
yeah,
never, so to say all that, they never proclaimed what they did. Well, then now it's interesting, like, because I'm seeing writers come through that had like military background, and maybe they were SEALs or they were Delta or Special Forces or whatever. Now they're writing books, so they're fictionalizing, like you said, a lot of it, or
yeah,
they're even putting photos out from the time they served, and they're able to reveal things that for years no one ever did. So it's kind of
yeah,
an interesting kind of juxtapose of a different mindset now of now it's actually some of the stuff is coming out. And
yeah.
it's interesting thing to watch basically from someone that's not lived that lifestyle. I try to tell the stories of that lifestyle, but it's really is truly a story from the lifestyle, not the actual real world experience.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, I mean, you saying that. I mean, I remember many years ago when I was just a toddler. My dad had got a cine camera. I don't know if you remember cine cameras, and
Hmm.
no sound, an 8mm reel kind of thing, and he was videoing in the port, and he just managed to get some footage of the battleship in the port on behind, and it wasn't long before he was told you can't do that. He had the film confiscated. They
Yeah.
said and of course to look how it's gone from that to
Yeah.
where we are. I mean, I got pictures on my social media of me driving tanks I mean, I because I'm a bit naughty and I can't help myself. I've just got this this streak within me, and there are a few particular government sites and places I've been to, and on the way in, you're not allowed cameras, you're not allowed this, and not allowed that. And I'm standing in the reception, and there's this thing saying, government facility, strictly no photos, no cameras, no electronic devices, no. What am I doing? I'm taking a selfie.
Dude, uh, I had my kids in DC several weeks back, right before the end of our summer break, and you get to the see where the Declaration of Independence is
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
Constitution, everything, and I'm like, there is a sign right when you're walking up to it says no photography allowed.
Mhm.
Now that opens the question of it. So, well, no professional photography or no whatever, because everyone and their brother is all.
Yeah,
I mean, and
yeah.
I see people taking pictures, and there's two security guards standing on either side of the Declaration of Independence, pretty much with their arms folded, just
Mhm.
looking ahead, and everyone in front of them is taking pictures, and not a word's being said. It's like, well, shoot, man, I haven't seen this document in 20 years, so maybe I'll, or I haven't seen this reproduction of the document, whatever it is, in 20 years. So it's like, well, I guess I'll take some photos too. But one thing that made me think of when you just said what you did too is and I showed it to my son recently. And I'm gonna draw a blank. It wasn't Heat. It was what movie? Oh crap. It'll come to me. We'll keep talking and it'll come to me.
Yeah.
I showed my son this movie and oh man, Robert De Niro's in it, Sean Bean is in it. And why am I drawing a blank as to what the name of this movie is?
Mhm.
It takes place over in Europe. They're in Nice, they're in France, and it's annoying me. It'll come to me in the course of me telling the story. But
Yep.
in the story, Robert De Niro is trying to kind of like uh expose the fact that Sean Bean's character is not really who he says he is. And
Mhm.
so Robert De Niro starts getting aggressive with him and says, what's the color of the boathouse in Hereford? And he's like, the what? The way Sean Bean's like, what? What are you saying? And he's like getting aggressive with it. And it's again kind of pointing out the fact of maybe you don't know what you say you know, or maybe you haven't been there, or maybe you have. But I don't know. It's stuff like that is kind of always fascinating to watch people's take on it. So,
Yeah, brilliant. Funnily, you on about the photos as well made me when you're saying about the Declaration of Independence and people taking photos of security
yep.
guards. I took my mom and my dad not long after the Queen died. We went to I took them to Windsor Castle.
Okay.
The coffin was
Yeah.
still in the
Oh,
and
wow.
so we went to Windsor Castle now. I don't know. I know you guys do a lot of this over in the States. You give like you look after the military and that kind of thing over there.
Right.
Not so much over here. It's very rare. There's a few places that give military discount or entrance to the
Mhm.
museums and that kind of thing, but not as much as what
Not
you
as
guys
much.
do.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, you can get into Windsor Castle for free if you show your military ID card. So I got that. I got the tickets, and I got us in, and in we went. And we're walking around Windsor Castle, and and the signs everywhere. Strictly no photography, and
Mhm.
I'm me. I'm taking photos anyway.
Click, click, click,
But
click. You're taking pictures of the sign that says no
yeah,
photography.
that's exactly because that's just me and my nature. So I'm doing. But that being said, I'm a little bit more cautious. Obviously, working in the industry I've worked in, I know when to take them.
Yep.
But my mom, I've left her unattended, and of course she's around there clicking, and she gets told off. She says, you can't take photos in here. My mom's like, oh, I'm sorry. So she puts the phone down, and next thing you know, she's walking up the stairs, and as she gets to the top, she's got it. And she's going like this with the camera again, and the woman came over to her and she said, I've told you, you're not allowed to take any photos. My mom, the Irish in her, came out. She turned around and said, I'm not taking photos. She says, it's a video. I was like, Mom, just put the phone in your pocket for
Oh
crying out
goodness. I got enough photos for you, Mom. Don't worry. While you were arguing with that lady, I took a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah,
oh,
she served
too
her
funny.
purpose as a good distraction.
Absolutely. And I do got it. The movie that I was thinking of is Ronin. I don't know if you've seen the
Ronan.
movie.
Oh no, I haven't seen it. No.
That actually, it's probably like top 20 movie, and that's why I was pissed that was drawing a blank on it, and my old age kicking in. But Ronin. So if you get a chance, very 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 well done. Has one of the best car chases in modern movies, I believe. So yeah,
Okay.
very very entertaining. I'll send you a link to it or whatever. But
Brilliant. Yeah.
um,
Is that reasonably recent then? That is it like
no,
2015
Ronin's
ish or?
probably 90s, sometime in the 90s, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Probably. Hold on. Google will tell me. Ronin was 1998.
Oh,
So
okay.
yes.
There's
So
half a chance I might have seen it then, but not, not remembering. But yeah, I
yeah.
might have been drunk that day.
I don't, when I started taking writing seriously, I've talked about this in other podcasts. So 2014 is when I actually really dived into it. My movie watching from 2014 to present day, so for 10 years now, I definitely have seen movies. I can't say I haven't, but
Hmm.
it's very sporadic.
Yeah.
So people will be like, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" And I'll be like, "No." They're like, "That was like a big hit." I'm like, "Yeah, I heard of it. I know," but they're like, "No, I just." And shoot, I did a bunch of editing late last night, and I don't go from writing and editing to just like close your eyes and go to sleep because I'm
Hmm.
normally worked up. So I went to put something on, and um, I was flipping through Netflix, and it was just I watch a lot. I'll watch series on Netflix, and I'll spread that gets spread out over the course of months normally, or I'll
Yeah.
binge like a 6 episode series in like one weekend. 2 episodes a night for 3 nights or something. I'll just watch the series. But I was like looking just for a movie last night, and I mean it took a while before I was like, okay, yeah, that looks like something I might. And it's something that came out I think this year, but and it was entertaining. It was military related.
Hmm.
I didn't want to watch like a drama or something and then just although it probably would have been a good idea because I probably would have been like bonk. But but yeah, there's so
No,
many I don't see anymore.
I'm pretty much. I very seldom watch television at all. I mean, I used to watch a few movies. I don't so much anymore. I occasionally watch a series if I'm
Hmm.
into a particular series. The only thing is, I mean, so Netflix and Prime and all these things that you've got they're not the same as what they used to be. You go back a few years, whether it's Now TV or Netflix or whatever, and because you paid your monthly subscription, you had all these channels. And by the way, I don't know whether you know this or not, but your Netflix over there has about 100 times more options than what our Netflix over here does. We are. It's not. They're not identical.
Interesting. I figured they weren't identical, but I didn't realize we'd have a lot more options
Oh,
than
hell
you.
of a lot more. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So and so that's the first thing. And then I don't know what it's like over there at the minute, but I know over here, especially with Prime, you pay for your Prime, and then the majority of stuff you go on, you have to pay again to either what they call rent or buy. You're
Yep.
in Netflix, I think is pretty much the same. You get so many, but then you have the option to buy more. And I'm thinking, well, you know, and so that's the first thing that kind of annoys me about these pay as you go kind of
Yeah.
TV. But you're paying a monthly subscription and then paying to use it as well.
Right.
And then you get on to something that might look half decent with a cast like a mixed bag of skittles, and before you know it, you're 5 minutes into it, and they start off with political messages, and you just think, "Oh, that's just done it for me.
Yeah.
I can't watch anymore."
Yeah, so over here, Prime is definitely that way, where you get some stuff for Prime for free or not free. You pay for Prime,
Yeah.
but then a lot of the stuff is under a paywall. And
Hmm.
honestly, the only reason I have Amazon Prime, from the video side of it, is because I wanted Amazon Prime from the delivery standpoint because
Exactly. Me too.
I think I ordered 3 things yesterday from Prime. My son needed a rice cooker, and I needed a birthday present for my brother-in-law who turns 30 on Monday. And so, boom,
Yeah.
boom, like 2 clicks, and I spend, $100 and piece of cake. But so video comes with it as well, and I do watch stuff on it, but it's
Yeah.
it's normally like a Jack Ryan series or The Terminalist was on a couple years ago. I watched that, but it
Mm.
very limited, and it might be like one series that they offer, and then I don't watch it again for like 3 months, and I forget that I even have it. Netflix here, you do not have to pay extra, so you pay your monthly fee in the United States, and everything is covered that I've seen covered by that through that paywall. You don't have to
Hmm.
pay extra, and there is
Oh, that's
tons of
brilliant.
stuff on there, but yeah, most of the time, and I guess I'm just getting that middle age fuddy-duddy stage of like, yeah, who cares? I've seen 5 movies like that in the course of my life, and I'll go back. I have a probably 100 plus DVD collection. If I'm really at a spot most of the time, I'll just throw in a movie I've seen, like 30
Mm,
times over the years. I'll throw in Ronin or I'll throw in Heat or whatever it is.
yeah.
And I was doing some I was getting some letters for some readers a couple weekends back that had bought my books, and I always do this not handwritten letters, but they're typed out letters, and then I wax seal them shut. So I had like I don't know like 15, 20 wax seals I had to do, and I do them by hand. Like you melt the wax, then you pour it, then you stamp it.
Oh
So
wow.
it's like 3, 4 minutes a pop. So this is gonna be like an hour plus of my life. So I was sitting in my kitchen area on the table, and you can just see the living room television. It's big enough that you can see it from that far away. And I put like Rush Hour on, which I hadn't seen in years. And so, of course, then I'm sitting there just melting stuff, and I'm just laughing, and I'm remembering, oh, I forgot Jackie Chan said that or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's like I'll just go back old school and just watch stuff
Well, I
basically.
can fully relate to that, and I'll tell you for why. The last three and a bit years, I've been reliving the 80s with my daughter.
There you go.
Since the age of like 8 years old thereabouts, when she was kind of just young enough to be, and we've been watching like Gremlins and Short
Yep.
Circuit and
Oh,
all
Short
the
Circuit's such a great movie. I haven't seen it in
oh yeah,
years.
and of course she was like, and still is to a degree, young enough for it to still be magical and see the film and
Right.
not see what we see as adults.
Yes.
So she's loving all of the, like I said, I've gone right through the 80s, Big Trouble in Little China,
Oh yeah.
all the 80s classics, which she's absolutely loving. We watched Terminator. We watched all the Terminators not so long back. She watched the first one. Considering she's a little girl, she loved it that much. Then
She
she
loved
wanted
it.
to watch two, and that was it. She was hooked. So yeah, and again, like you, all on DVD. Every
Yeah.
single one of them. When we watch it, I do it old school. I buy them off Amazon, get them delivered, sit and watch the DVD, because all this thing you've got now on this Prime and whatever, buy and rent. You're not buying anything. You're not renting anything. You don't own it. You can't.
No,
If they pull the plug, it's gone.
it's gone.
If
Yeah.
they sell out to someone else, you own nothing.
You own yeah.
Yeah. So me personally, I would like to know that if the power is shut off or the internet is unplugged or whatever, that I can get the generator out and still watch a
You
DVD.
could still, yeah, no, I
Which
just
might,
went and
and I
bought,
did actually buy it.
I don't buy them on a regular basis, but every now and then I'll be walking through a store and I'll be like, oh, I haven't seen that movie in years. And
Mm.
it's $6, $7, whatever. And I'll just buy it and it gets stuck in the shelf. And I have probably 20 that are not even opened that I've seen movies years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But, what did I get the other day? Oh, I got the Hobbit trilogy, which I love Lord of the Rings, and I have the Blu-ray director's cut of Lord of the Rings. Well, I had the Hobbit movies, but I think my ex took them in the divorce. I don't know. They were gone last time I looked for them. I'm like, hey, didn't I? I wanted to watch for some reason. I wanted to watch the Hobbit, which I didn't even like the 3 Hobbit movies very much. But I like the first one better than the other ones, and
Good.
so I couldn't find them. And I'm like, well, I know I had them at some point. So I was going through Walmart or whatever a month ago, and there was like the Blu-ray Hobbit 3 pack for like $10 or something. And I'm like, oh shoot, man. So I've got it. It's now sitting on the shelf. One night I'll get done writing and I'll just I'll throw it on or whatever. But I was gonna tell you too, I went through a phase with my son about over a year ago whenever he was like old enough to watch R-rated movies, but
Mm.
clean R-rated movies, not
Yeah.
showing him anything gratuitous or whatever, but stuff that I couldn't really show him when he was younger. And I was going through the divorce. There's like all this there's all this like laws for where I got divorced where you can't subject your kids to this, and this, or you could possibly get pulled in back into court. And I didn't want to even open up that can of worms in case that popped
Yeah.
up. So I was like, okay, he's not old enough to watch an R-rated. I think he couldn't watch an R-rated movie till he was 16. I think that was what the terminology said in the court papers. So at 16, I basically I had a stack of movies ready because two Wednesdays a month I have just one of the kids. So I'll have my son for 2 Wednesdays, then the next 2 Wednesdays I'll have my daughter, and it rotates. So, but his Monday or his Wednesdays, we'd watch movies. So, like the first one I wanted him to watch when he was old enough was The Rock. The Rock is one of my favorite. Terminator 2 was one of my favorites. So
Yeah.
we just went through Con Air. We just went through like all these quintessential movies that I love to watch back in the day. That it's like, hey, what do you think of this one? And we watched Ronin was one that we watched that I totally forgot on the name on that. So, but yeah, we just and I've actually there's a stack sitting over on that shelf that we still haven't gotten through. So I see it in the corner of my eye. There's still like 8 movies of the however many I've had stacked there. Well, just every now and then when I have a Wednesday with him, I'll pull it out and be like, okay, this we're watching, or this movie this time, and so
Yeah.
it's been a fun experience to show him those movies that I got a kick out of maybe in my 20s or late teens or early 30s or whatever. And now, now he's old enough to sit down and enjoy them with me.
Oh yeah, and of course it's like the whole kind of our generation. We've got a whole lot of quotes that only we put the money back in the box, hasta la vista, more input, Stephanie, blah blah blah,
Oh
whatever it
yeah.
is. And of course now my daughter, 11 years old, she knows all these quotes and she knows all these. I mean, she knows what we're referring to, what I'm referring to when I say something, and rather than going looking at me like my dad's a bit weird, she knows that it's come from a particular movie or it's or something. So yeah, we have a good laugh.
Do you guys watch Seinfeld over there? Have you seen?
It's yeah, it's not so big over here. I mean,
Not so bad. Okay.
it's available over here,
Okay.
but yes, it's not. It's not. I'm trying to think what are the bigger ones over here are.
Well, you have the British version
Yeah,
of The Office. You guys started the show The
yeah,
Office, and then
that was
of
the
course the
original. Yeah,
US knocked it off and stuff,
you did
but
a better job though, as always.
I've never seen your version of it, honestly. I've seen clips, I guess, but I've never
It's
actually
okay.
seen. Okay.
It's not my kind of thing, but like there's I mean we got Frasier and Everybody Loves Raymond and that kind of thing that
Okay.
usually morning TV over here. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
uh, yeah, you guys generally do films and TV a lot better than what we do.
We
You've got
we
the
do the
budget.
make believe better. You guys just took over half the world at one point, so
I'm going to refrain from saying anything because
well,
no, I'm gonna bite my
that's there we
lip.
go. See, I've heard the explosion slow down, so apparently you've been better the second part of the interview. So
Yeah.
you've not crossed any lines. We don't want to get it back on that side.
That's
So,
it. Yeah, they've
um,
recruited.
well, hey, let's wrap up with this question. This is how I end all my interviews. And it'll probably come out of left field a little bit, but I like to
That's
make
okay.
people think a little bit. So, because you're a writer, and even though you live in England and I live in the United States, there's a lot of life similarities. So I think you'd agree that life is kind of like a book. All of us have a first chapter, and we're gonna have a last chapter, and there all these pages in between there that are hopefully still unwritten. You don't know how many pages you have though. None of us know. So, but as a writer, you get to write your last page. You have that ability to write your last page. What would you want it to say?
Hmm.
And you can take this any way you want. I've had people come back with 3-word answers, with a whole diatribe, and they've gone different directions with it. So there's no rules. I'm just always curious of, if you get a chance to write your last page in your own words, what do you want it to say?
I did actually put a post on Facebook a while ago with me holding a Glock like this, standing up against a fence, and it says something along the lines of, "My last words will probably be something like, you've got to be effing kidding me.'"
No one's answered that one yet. That's a new one.
So, it's like anything, isn't it? I think we all want to. No, nobody wants to fade away.
Yeah.
We want to go out with a bang, and unlike the movies and unlike books, life is very seldom a case of being able to say that perfect cool line and having everybody go wow as you pull the trigger. But it's kind of if I'm gonna get to choose, I'd love it to be quick and painless on my last page, but I'd love it to be super cool.
Super cool.
It's yeah, it's got to be a way where I do a swallow dive into a concrete slab or something, but save somebody's life while I'm doing it.
That is hilarious. Uh, so for those that need to find a book written or all of the books written by Gavin Stone, where would you like to send our listeners?
I think the best place, no matter what country you're in, is probably going to be Amazon because that's
Yeah.
where like most people default to. I've got a few fiction books out there as well as the non-fiction. The number one in the Spies for Hire series is The Unforgiven Spy. The next one has just come out recently, which is called The Hunted. No, that's
The
the third
Burning
one.
Spy.
The Burning Spy. That's it. Thank you.
I did my homework. See,
Yeah.
it's on my list over here that you can't see.
Yeah, the Burning Spy. Number 3 in the trilogy is going to be the Hunted Spy, and I say trilogy because it was originally written as a trilogy.
Okay.
However, there is a concept outline for number 4, and it looks like it's going to be an ongoing series.
Awesome. Well, Gavin, thank you for coming on. I hope people, no matter which country they listen to, because we have good international listens, I hope people go to Amazon and type in Gavin Stone and one of those fine books and buy all of them. But thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.